In this example, we're going to assemble clip art to create the coat of arms that you can see here. We're going to make use of the free clip art that comes with the software to create our design, and we're going to look at how we can utilise the powerful mirror mode function to effortlessly lay out the clip art. So let's go to File, Close, and then we're going to create a new file. So we're working with a single-sided job. The width of this is going to be 7 inches, the height is going to be 8 inches. Material thickness that we're working with is going to be 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to set our Z0 of the material surface, XY position in the centre. Modelling resolution, we're going to work with a very high modelling resolution, Canadian maple for the appearance, and then we could go ahead and press OK. So let's tile our windows vertically, that way I can see both the 2D and the 3D view at the same time. Now before I assemble clip art in the software, it's good to have a little bit of research behind you for inspiration. Now I've researched into heraldry, coat of arms, crests, things like that, and it's fairly common that the centre motif is a shield of some sort. A lot of them have ribbons with text on, and outside the shield they're usually styled with a mirror design that usually consists of a variety of flourishes. So we're going to make use of the free clip art to create our own design, and we're going to utilise the mirror mode option to create the flourish layout outside of the shield that we saw earlier. So to begin with, we're going to look at the central area of the design. So we'll be looking at bringing a shield in and maybe some other extra pieces of clip art to just complete the central area. And typically when we're creating assemblies with the clip art, we lay the clip art out into a layout that we like the look of, and then once we're okay with how the part looks, then we move on to the next stage where we're interested in the components' heights. So this is where we decipher what components go in the foreground, the midground and the background, and we adjust the heights to create that look. So to start with, we're just going to look at laying the clip art out to create the overall composition. So let's go into the Modelling tab. Now as I said, we're going to focus on the central area to begin with. So let's change the name of level 1 by right clicking on that level. We're going to rename that level, and we're going to call this level Central Design. You can just click to accept that. So now we're ready to look through our clip art and create our design. So to locate the clip art that I've installed onto my machine, I can come over to the clip art tab. You see that I've added the clip art folder, and I can view all of the clip art in this clip art tab here. So as I said, we're going to look at the central design. So we're going to start by looking for a shield. Now we've got a folder here called Panels and Shields, all sorts of different panels and shields available. So we're just going to browse through these until I find something that I quite like. In this case, I quite like this one here. So to bring that piece of clip art into my job, if I double click on that, that'll just bring that into the centre there. So now we could look at sizing that. So we're going to take the transform handle in the corner here, hold down shift, scale that in proportion and about its centre point. Okay, so I like the size of that. So now what we could do is look for something that could sit on top and underneath the shield. Now quite often you find a ribbon or a banner that goes either above or underneath the shield. It usually has some text inscribed on it. Now in the free clip art we've got a folder here called Ribbons, Banners, so let's have a look at what we've got in there. So I quite like the look of the banner that we've got there, so I'm just going to double click that to put that in place, and then we could just look at positioning that and sizing it. So I'm just going to size it down so it's a little bit smaller. Okay, and then what we could do is we could just position it. So I'm just going to press Alt just to keep that in line vertically there, and look at position that at the top. Okay, it doesn't seem to suit the top there. Let's try at the bottom, somewhere like this. Okay, maybe it would look better if we flipped that vertically. So what we could do with this selected, we could just simply press V on the keyboard, that's going to flip that vertically, and you can see we've made that change there, and it actually does look quite better in this layout. So here we could just look at maybe just shrinking that down ever so slightly, and then maybe just look at shifting that down a little. So just going to use a down arrow key, and then maybe just nudge that up a little. And I quite like the layout that we've got there. And you'll also find that helmets with plumes appear a lot in many of the crests that you see. So if we go into objects and people, I know that we have just a piece of clip art here, helmets, plumes, and if we just double click that, you can bring that into the center there. And then we're just going to size this. You can see it's far too big at the moment. Ideally what I would like is for the helmet to just sit on top of the crest that we've got, or the shield that we've got in the center. So in the 3D view we can also alter the size or move objects around here. So I'm just going to take that handle, hold down shift, and we're just going to decrease the size there. Okay, might want to make that a little bit bigger, and then what I'd like to do is just sit that on top of the shield. So I'm going to take that, hold down Alt just to keep that in line vertically, and we're just going to look at moving that up there. Okay, so I could do with just moving the whole lot down a little. So with that selected, hold down Shift, select the shield, Shift, select the banner, and then hold down Alt with them all selected, so we keep all of those components in line along that vertical. We could bring that in like so. Okay, so now we can just look at tweaking with the position of the helmet here. So I might just want to nudge that up ever so slightly. If I zoom in, just use the down arrow key just to bring that down again. Let's use the option here to zoom to fit. So at this stage I feel that we've pretty much got the central design complete. We've got the shield, we've got the typical banner sat at the bottom there, and we've got the helmet with plumes sat on top of our shield. So now what we could do is we could start to think about creating the mirrored decor that goes around the outside of our shield. So to do that, let's just keep our part organised. We're going to go into the modelling tab, we're going to right click on the central design level, and this time we're going to look at creating a new level. So we'll use the insert new level option. I'm going to right click on level 1, we're going to rename this level, and we're going to call this level Flourishes. So any components that I bring in from the clip art tab now will be added into the Flourishes level, and this really is just a way for me to just organise all of my 3D components. So with that Flourishes level created, let's just right click, go to the combine mode. I'm going to set the combine mode of this level to merge, so any piece of clip art that I add into this level will ultimately blend in with everything that we already have here in our component tree. So now we can go back into the clip art tab. We've got a folder here called decorative, so here we're able to locate some decorative flourishy style pieces of clip art. Okay, I quite like the look of this, flourish repeat too, so let's just double click that to bring that into our job, and then we could just look at sizing that, and then maybe just position that somewhere like so. Again, we could just look at sizing that, moving that over. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the flourishes and the outer decor in most coat of arms are symmetrical, and we want to replicate that in our design. Now, one way of doing this is to take the component and then look at creating a mirrored copy over to the right hand side. Now this is okay, however if I wanted to make changes to the position or size of one of the flourishes, then we no longer have a symmetrical part, and so we would need to delete the mirrored component and then remirror the original to update the symmetry. So to help ourselves, we're going to look at putting the flourish level into mirror mode so we can get a better visualization of my layout with every tweak and change that I make to the components. So mirror mode can be accessed by the level itself. So let's go into the modelling tab. Now I'm just going to temporarily switch off the visibility of this central design level just while we look at demonstrating the mirror mode. Now if we right click on a level, you'll see under combine mode we have an option here called mirror mode. Now mirror mode allows us to place in virtual mirrors within the centre of our job, either vertically or horizontally, or both at the same time. And according to what mirror mode you are using, the software will mirror any components that you have in the area of the job that you are mirroring. So let's take a look at the top four. So you can see here we've got mirroring left to right, right to left. So that means we'd input a virtual mirror that runs down the vertical centre of our job, and it will mirror anything on the left to the right, or if you've got it in right to left, it will mirror any components on the right hand side over to the left hand side. Now top to bottom and bottom to top is where we input a virtual mirror that runs through the centre horizontally along this line here. So again, anything that we have on the top or bottom will be mirrored opposite to each other. In the bottom four options, we have the option to mirror by quadrants. This is where we have a mirror both in the vertical and in the horizontal, and it will just mirror the actual quadrant over to each of the other quadrants as well. So let's just start by looking at left to right. So we can see we've got a component on the left hand side of our job. So imagine this line is our mirror line, and if we're going to mirror left to right, it's going to mirror that in the 3D view. And so you'll notice in the 3D view we have the mirrored component here. However, we have nothing here in the 2D view, neither do we have a new component added to our component tree. And this is because the mirror property is part of the level itself, so it's similar to the combine mode, and so we only see the result of the mirror mode in the composite model in the 3D view. Even though I can see it in the 3D view, I can't select it, as this only exists as part of the actual mirror mode. So let's just take that component, and then you'll notice that if I move this, it instantly updates in the 3D view and mirrors it according to where I've positioned it on the left hand side, where it's being mirrored over to the right hand side also. Now as we're mirroring left to right, anything that goes over that mirror line, this vertical line here, will not be mirrored. We're only mirroring everything on the left hand side, so you can see the result of that there in the 3D view. Now if I pull this right the way over, so we're just leaving a small part on the left hand side, you'll see it's only mirroring that part. So here we can just move everything around, and the nice thing about this is that we're just getting constant updates here in the 3D view. So let's just switch on the central design level. Okay, now central design level is on a level where it's not being mirrored, so we're not going to notice anything there if we move the banner, for instance. So let's just edit and undo that move there. And we can also tell this by looking at the icons of the level itself. Now in the flourishes level, where we applied a mirror mode going left to right, where we use that vertical mirror, you'll see that we've got that line running through the centre of our merge icon here. So that's indicating we're mirroring vertically here, either left to right or right to left. Now if we was to change the mirror mode for this level, let's say top to bottom or bottom to top, we've got a line that runs horizontally through that icon, and that's indicating that we've got a mirror line running through the horizontal centre where we're going to mirror top to bottom or bottom to top. So let's just change that back, mirror mode to left to right, and where we have no mirror mode, for example in the central design, we have no line in our icon there. So now we can get a really nice composition here for the decorative flourishes on the outside of the shield using the mirror mode. So let's just take this component here, we're going to select it again to put it into transform mode. I'm just going to look at rotating that, and then we're just going to look at shrinking the size of that. Okay, maybe a little bit too small. Let's just bring that up a bit, and then we'll just bring that up again. And what we'll do is we'll just look at positioning that somewhere around here. So I'm constantly looking in a 3D view here to see how the part looks and how the part's actually being mirrored. Okay, again, what I might want to do is just look at rotating that and then just moving that down. Okay, so that's not too bad. So now I'd like to use the up arrow key just to nudge that up. So I like what we've got here in the 3D view. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at creating some more flourishes along the bottom here. We're actually going to use the same piece of clip art that we've got here. So I'm going to create a copy of this. So we're going to use the option Control, Shift and then V to create a copy down the vertical. And you'll see it's created that copy there. Then we're going to take that, just going to move that over. I'm going to double click on the center of our object here to input the rotation center there, like so. So now you can see the pivot point is in the center of the object, and I can rotate that, and it means it rotates about its own center. So we can rotate it, we could move it, and again I can see how it looks here in the 3D view. So with that selected, I'm just going to look at moving that. Might want to just make this a little bit smaller so they're not touching each other, and then just move that over there like so. Okay, this isn't too bad. I might just nudge it up a little bit more. And again, with every move that I'm making, I'm getting constant updates here in the 3D view to how the overall composition looks because of the mirror mode. Okay, so with that, I quite like what we have there. Might just want to shrink it ever so slightly and then maybe just nudge that over to the right a little. Maybe that was a little bit too much, so I'm just going to use the left arrow key just to nudge that back. Okay, so I like that. And then I'm just going to take this banner here, double click on that, and I'm just going to nudge that up ever so slightly like so. So now I'd like to look at creating the flourishes for the sides of the shield. So we're going to look at a new piece of clip art. Now as we're working with a new area of the design, I'm just going to create a new level. So right click on flourishes, insert new level, right click, rename that level, and we're going to call this level side flourishes. Then we're going to right click on that level, change the combine mode of that so it's merging with everything that we've already created here. Now before we go ahead and bring in a new set of flourishes, what I'd like to do is just box select everything just by dragging a box around my entire composition so that all the components are selected, and I'd just like to nudge that up the y-axis a little just to make the shield a little bit more central to my job space. Okay, so with that done, let's just click in the white space just to deselect everything there. So now we can bring a new piece of clip art into our design. So let's go to the clip art tab. I'm going to stay with the decorative theme here. I'm just going to browse through the clip art. I like the look of this, Flourish 227. Let's double click on that to bring that into my job. I'm going to go into the drawing tab, and with that component selected, we're just going to rotate that about its center. We're going to rotate that 90 degrees, press apply, close that down. Might want to make that a little bit smaller, so I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to take the control handle in the corner, hold down shift, and I'm just going to bring that down. Might want to just do that a little bit more like so. Then we could look at positioning that over to the left hand side. So to help us visualize the part better, let's go into the modeling tab. We're going to right click on the side flourishes, and we're going to go to the mirror mode. So again, we could do left to right if we wanted to, so we could take a look at that. Again, we could look maybe at just sizing that down and just moving that over. It's not too bad. However, I think we might get some more interesting results if we looked at mirroring this part by quadrant. So let's just undraw the flourishes level. I'm going to undraw the central design. I'm going to right click on side flourishes. I'm going to go to mirror mode. I'm going to mirror top left quadrant. So what that will do means that we're going to put a mirror along the horizontal and a mirror along the vertical here. And so wherever I move this, you'll see it's mirroring it by the quadrant that it's currently in. So we're in the left quadrant here. If I move that over to the right, nothing will happen because nothing is in the top left quadrant. If I put that in there like so, you'll see it just these areas on the left side are being mirrored by quadrant here. Again, if I went over to the bottom here, it's only mirroring everything in this top left quadrant. So again, you can see we've got some really interesting results by mirroring by quadrant. So let's just undo all of those. I'm just going to put it back into its original position. And we're just going to switch on the flourishes and we're going to switch on the central design there. And so you'll also notice the icon for side flourishes has both the vertical and the horizontal line running through that icon there. And that's because we're mirroring by quadrant. Okay, so that component's selected. I'm just going to nudge that down using the down arrow key on my keyboard. So we're essentially just mirroring everything up to this line here. So that's why we don't see this part in the 3D view. And I'm just going to nudge that down again. Okay, quite like what we're getting here. Might want to do that one more time. Okay, it's not too bad. And then I want to just look at bringing that in towards our shield. So I'm going to just nudge that over to the right hand side. And I might do that again, like so. Okay, I quite like what we've got there. Again, what I might want to do is just nudge that back up just to make this a little bigger on the side here. And so all I'm really doing here is just moving this component in small increments and just taking a look at the 3D view to see how the overall composite model looks as that's in the quadrant mirror mode. And you can see that I've got a really nice composition there in relation to everything else that we already have in place. So here we're just going to make some final tweaks to the overall layout. So I'm going to go back to this component here. I'm just going to select it again to put it into transform mode, and I'm just going to shrink that down ever so slightly so it looks like that. And then what I might want to do is just with that selected, I'm going to hold down Alt just to keep that in line. I'm just going to nudge that down. Okay, so that's not too bad. And so you can continue to edit, move, rotate the components until you're comfortable with the layout. Now I like the layout that we have here. I feel that we've accomplished the brief that we gave ourselves to create our own coat of arms, where we laid out the central motif. So we started off with the shield, the banner and the helmet, and then we looked at how we could assemble the clip art that forms the symmetrical flourishes around the outside of the crest with the help of using the various mirror mode options to create our overall finished layout. So now that we have the layout, all we need to do now is to adjust the heights of the components so that we can distinguish what's in the foreground, the background and in the midground. So let's start by looking at the shield. Now I want the shield to be in the foreground. I want that to be the most prominent part of our overall layout. So if that's selected, let's go into the properties here. So here I'm just going to increase the actual shape height. So let's make that 1/4 of an inch. Press space to enter that in. Okay, so it's not too bad. You can see that we're still missing areas of the shield. You can see they're hidden, indicated by this green shadow. So let's have a look at adding in a base height just to add some vertical height to the part to lift it up. So let's just put in a small base height of 0.05, press space to enter that in, and you can see that's pretty much just done the trick there. It's lifted everything up. Okay, so I like the way that that looks there. And then let's have a look at the helmet. Now another tip here, you can maximise the 3D view just to see the part a little better. And so with the helmet, we could select that and you'll notice that my component properties form has now updated. So here what I could do is we could look at increasing the height, we could look at using the slider if we wanted to. Okay, so it's not too bad. Let's just try that a little bit more, see what we get there. Okay, so I want this area of the helmet to be right in front of the shield. So we're almost there. Let's put that to 8. Okay, so I think that's the best that we're going to get there. So that's not too bad. Okay, so then we can move on to the banner. So we'll select the banner there in the 3D view. And here we could look at increasing the height. So I'd like this to be a little more prominent. So we're going to go with a height, let's say 1.5 in this case. Press space to enter that in. Okay, we're not completely clearing the bottom of that shield there. So let's just add in a base height. Let's try 0.05 just to bring that up. Okay, so I like what we've got there. Looks good. So now we can move on and think about the various flourishes. Okay, so I'll take this one here. So flourish repeat 2, and here it's actually not too bad as it is, so we're just going to leave that as it is. And then we're going to take the bottom flourish here, and we can see that this also isn't too bad. I could maybe give it a bit more height in there, so I'll make that 0.2 just to lift that up a little. You can see that when I change the height of this one, it's also changed the height of its symmetrical partner as well. Okay, so let's move on to the last flourish here. So this one, we can see the current shape height here. Might want to just look at increasing that just to lift it up in front of this area here. So we'll make that say 0.15, press space to enter that in. You can see it's now pretty much in front of that flourish. However, at this point here, it's still sat nicely under everything else. Okay, so let's just put that in Z, and we'll just come out of the properties form there. And so we can see that just by altering the shapes, heights and base heights, we've now created a part where the shield is prominently in the foreground, the helmet and the banner are in the midground, and then all of the flourishes that surround that crest are nicely positioned in the background. And so this really finishes the design here. Now there is one last thing that I want to discuss, and that's how you'd machine a part that was created in mirror mode. So let's just tile our windows vertically so we can see both the 2D and the 3D view. Now in most cases, when we machine clip art, we could just use the option to machine the model boundary, which will essentially machine the overall composite model. Now sometimes there may be cases where you'd need to create a vector boundary around the part created in mirror mode in order for you to run a cutout pass. So the same principle applies where we can use the create vector boundary from selected components option, which is this icon here. So to do that, we need to select all of the components. So we're going to start by selecting flourish here, holding down shift, select shield 2 so that they're all selected there, and then we could simply use this option to create vector boundary around the selected components. So if we click on that, you can see that even though we can't see the component grayscales of a mirror mode level in the 2D view, we're still presented with the vector boundary around those mirrored components. And so it's just worth noting that we are able to create vector boundaries around mirror mode components if we needed to. So that pretty much completes this tutorial. So let's go ahead and save this file. So go to File, Save As, and we're just going to call this one Coat of Arms 3D Assembly, press Save, and you can access that from the project folder.